The Honda Rebel 1100T and the Indian Super Scout are two of the best middleweight cruisers on the market. And today we're going to pit them against each other to decide once and for all which one of these machines is best. You're not going to want to miss this one. This is the Honda Rebel 1100T. Affordable, sporty, and easy to ride. And this is the Indian Super Scout. Beautiful, elegant, and an American V-twin. They're both the same category, but fundamentally very different machines. Now I own both of these bikes, and I've spent some serious time on each of them. So today, we're gonna settle this properly. We're going head to head across 8 categories. Every category will have a winner, and every winner gets a point. And at the end, we'll decide which one of these bikes is worth your money. All these comparisons are based off my experience. Now, I'm 6 feet tall and I have a 34-inch inseam, so factor that in as we go. My name's Chris, and you're watching Inland 208 Adventures. Let's get started. So first off, let's talk about what's different about these machines that I'm not going to put in the comparison in terms of the points. So for starters, this is a 1250cc motor in the Indian Super Scout, whereas the Honda Rebel 1100 is actually obviously an 1100cc class motor, 1083 to be exact. So I'm not going to put that in the comparisons because it's not really fair. They are in the same class, and that's the point, but this one will obviously have a little bit more power, so I'm not going to take any points away from the Rebel just because Indian decided to give this one a slightly larger motor than this one. It's more about the feel than it is about the raw power sometimes, so I wanted to get that out of the way. Okay, so the first point to be awarded is for looks and styling. So let's start with the Rebel. So the Rebel is kind of a bobber style like the rest of the Rebel line, and you'd only get one color, just this gray. It's a nice looking bike with a nice looking color, but it would be nice if there were some other color options there. Now, the motor, the 1100cc class motor, that actually comes out of the Africa V-twin, and you could tell that Honda just kind of said, you know what, it'd be really cool if we had a Rebel, and if we just put this bigger motor in it and just kind of slapped it into the frame somehow. And that's kind of the vibe that you get here. It's not like designed around the motor, and it's kind of more of an industrial looking look. I kind of like that, but not everyone does. Now moving on to the Indian, you can see the motor is actually designed to be a part of the bike itself. You have of course the chrome and the brushed stainless trimming points built right into the engine block. Of course it's a V-twin, so it's got a little bit of a different look anyway. The exhaust all flows nicely. The exhaust doesn't look the greatest, I'll give it that, but the Rebel stock exhaust doesn't either. So I can't really take that into consideration too much. The overall look of the Indian is just really good. The build quality is great. You can get this in a couple different color options. There's a red that looks really nice, but I really like this kind of matte black with the gray kind of flames and the Indian logo on it. It's just a really nice looking bike, and I've said this before, I think the Indian Scout is probably the best looking bike in the class. So the first point is going to be awarded to the Indian Super Scout. So the next point to be awarded is for comfort. I'm going to start here at Indian because this is just where I'm at. So the stock seat on the Indian is this seat right here, and it's nothing to write home about, but it's actually fairly comfortable, especially considering the alternative on the Rebel, which is not this seat, because it's literally the first thing that I did was get Honda's comfort seat. That's the OEM comfort seat. And even on my commute, my butt was hurting right away. The Indian Super Scout seat, even though it's nothing to write home about, I've actually ridden it about an hour. That's the longest ride I've done on this so far. This is new to me, but pretty comfortable. And I like the way it kind of hugs your butt. It's kind of funny because the seat feels hard when you're on it, but just the way that it's designed, it's actually pretty comfortable. Now, the Scout has forward controls, so does the Rebel. However, these are more forward. These are like this, so keep in mind, 6 feet, 34-inch inseam. This is how I fit on this bike like this. The handlebars are swept back and they're super wide, so when I'm actually riding the bike, this is what I'm looking like. I got pretty straight back. The handlebars are pretty much right where I'd want them to be. And overall, a very comfortable ride, which is why I chose this bike over the Indian Scout 101, because even though I thought I was going to buy that one, this one was just too comfortable to choose the 101 over it. So let's go sit on the Rebel for just a second here. Now the Rebel is comfortable for a lot of people. I would even say it's pretty comfortable to me, but I had to make some significant changes to the bike to make it that way. So now this does have forward controls compared to previous model years of the Rebel 1100, but they're not quite as forward as the Indian. I would almost call them mid-forward. But and these are not the standard pegs. These are the footboards that we recently put on, which is a very good thing to do on this bike, by the way. So this is what I look like riding this bike here. You can see like I got a little bit more 90-degree thing going on with my knees. The handlebars aren't quite as wide, but they're still fairly wide. Overall, still, for me, a pretty comfortable bike to ride. But after spending a lot of time on the Indian Super Scout over the last couple of months, I can definitely tell you, if you are 6 feet or above, and you have a decent length of your legs, then you're definitely going to want to choose the Indian over the Rebel. It's much more comfortable for me, so that point goes to the Indian as well. All right, so our next topic is build quality. We're going to start with Honda right here. So with the Honda Rebel 1100, Honda had to make some design choices, all kind of targeted towards getting this bike at a certain price point. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. The paint is good. The weld points and the seams with the welding are okay, but not amazing. We're going to be nitpicky here because this is a head-to-head battle after all. There is a lot more plastic on this bike. This trim piece is plastic. There's a trim piece of plastic right there. Up here, more on the other side. So a lot more plastic. The like I said, the weld points just aren't as premium looking or premium feeling. And if we move on to the Indian, it's a little bit of a different story. So on here, you can tell that the build quality is just 1 or even 2 notches above the Honda Rebel 1100's build quality. Starting with the weld points and the seams between the different pieces of metal are very well done. Even down to the paint that they decided to use is definitely a higher grade of paint. Now there's hardly any plastic on this bike, and I've talked about that in a previous video where I wanted to install a garage door opener that I have on my Rebel, but that requires some drilling into some plastics, and I couldn't find any plastic on this bike to do that, so I had to go a different route. This is metal over here. This trim piece is metal. Really, the only plastic piece on this bike is there's a 1250 logo on the other side that I wasn't going to drill into, and these like kind of air intake kind of things there are really the only pieces of plastic on the bike. You know, this is plastic, but when you sit on the Indian and you sit on them and on the Honda and you look at them side to side, you can tell that the build quality with the Indian is a notch above. So I'm sorry, Honda people, the point for build quality goes to Indian. So next we're going to talk about reliability. Now, this might be an easy win for Honda because that's why you buy them. You buy them because they're well priced, and you buy them because you get that good old-fashioned Honda reliability. But there is a couple things I want to talk about here. One is last year I made a video where when I was doing my first oil change, the oil filter cover for the DCT, I was putting the bolts back in to Honda spec, and they sheared off and I couldn't get them out. I ended up having to replace the whole engine cover. It cost me about $1,200. So that's more of a build quality issue. That's not a reliability thing. So I'm not going to dock them on that. There is another problem that other YouTubers have had, not me yet, where there's a leak at the stator wire, and maybe they fixed that for the 2025 model. We're going to find out, but I know Life of Birch has had that issue. I know on the Rebel 1100 has had that issue. I don't know about anyone else, but I do know it's a thing. So keep that in mind. The Indian, on the other hand, I don't know as much yet because I only have 500 miles on this bike. Obviously no issues, you would expect that. I'm told that the engine is quite reliable, and there is a YouTuber that I watched that ride across the entire country, a trip, and he didn't have any issues. He just did his oil changes while he was on the road, and the bike made it just fine and was none the worse for wear, except for just your standard maintenance. So that's really awesome. Maybe I'm going to do a an update to this video down the road when I get a few more miles on this and tell you if I think it's going to be just as reliable as the Honda. But Honda people, you get a win on this one because I'm going to give the point to Honda because it is classic. You're going to get the Honda, you're going to have reliability. End of story. Okay, so our next section is technology. Now we got some ATVers in the background having some fun, so if you hear that, we're just going to ignore that. But technology on both of these bikes is pretty great. They both have connected technology. They connect to your cell phones. They have dedicated apps for them. You have ride command with the Indian. You have road sync with the Honda. They are a little bit different in the way that they work. The road sync needs your phone and to have the app on the whole time for it to work. It does have turn-by-turn navigation, but you run all that through the phone and then it communicates to that. You can't really answer. You can answer phone calls. You can't do any text. It does connect a little bit oddly with the iPhone. So if you have an iPhone, keep that in mind, but it does work pretty well. And it is pretty cool. It also gives you a lot of information in terms of your fuel economy and stuff like that. It's all in there. The ride command is much more robust. It's of course it's a circle dial, which I like more than the square, and it has kind of a matte finish screen, which is pretty cool. So when direct sunlight, you can still see it pretty well versus the gloss screen on the Honda. But the ride command itself, actually, you can run it all from here. You don't actually need the app to be running. Like if you're doing turn-by-turn navigation, you just go to it. It's all touch screen, which that isn't over there at the Honda, and you can put in the address that you want to do. It finds it and off you go. So very, very cool. You can answer your phones. It'll read you your texts. Very, very cool. A little bit better, a little bit of a step up compared to the Honda's technology there. You don't need the app to run. The app is also better. It gives you health statistics of your bike and monitors that stuff for you. And then it has other features that you can pay for. It's free for a year, but you can pay after that, where it'll tell you where your bike location is and stuff like that. You definitely don't need it. All the main core stuff that you need is just automatically built in, and it's free. So the point is going to go to Indian on the connected technology. I think that the ride command is much better than the road sync. The road sync is a great step forward, but just not quite there. I'm going to interrupt this video for just a second. If you've been wanting to support this channel and join the crew, there are two great ways that you can do just that. First off, we have a merch store. Hats, shirts, hoodies, and stickers if you want to rep the channel on your rides. And if you want to go a step further, we've got channel memberships, which give you early access to videos, behind the scenes stuff, and other great perks. No pressure at all. Just watching these videos helps a ton. But if you want to support the ride, these options are out there. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay, so the next section that we're going to talk about is affordability. Now, this is an easy one here. So with the Rebel 1100T, out the door, I was about $12,500 with that. So with that, you get a lot of bang for your buck. You get a great engine, you get a sporty feel. It's a really nice motorcycle. You get the connectivity and the digital screen layout. You get a lot of bang for your buck. This is a great bike that's going to last a long time, and you're not going to have a whole lot of issues, and your cost of ownership, I think, is going to be fairly low. The Indian, on the other hand, it's just a step up. So yes, you do get a little bit better build quality and feel, and of course it's a much more beautiful bike. It's American. I wanted something American, but out the door, this was pretty close to $20,000. So you could almost buy two Hondas. You could buy two base model Hondas for the price of that Indian right there. So once again, Indian is more premium, but more bang for your buck is Honda. I'm going to give Honda the point on that one. All right, so our next section is convenience and tourability. So we'll start with the Indian since I'm standing right here. So the Indian comes with the passenger backrest. It comes with a high enough windshield to really take the wind off you. And it comes with these bags. These bags are pretty premium feeling. They're kind of leather on the outside. They're plastic bags, but leather on the outside. But they're a lot bigger than the Rebels, and you can fit quite a bit of stuff in there. But they don't lock, so keep that in mind. Now, the Honda, on the other hand, it comes with the Batwing fairing, but basically no windshield. This is actually an aftermarket one that I put on. The standard windshield's only about that high, so basically no windshield, which makes it a little less comfortable in that regard. The bags do lock, which is a major plus, but they are smaller. They do hold significantly less items in them. And this bike does not come with a passenger backrest, which I feel like if it's a touring bike, it should just have that. So with the convenience, you know, I commute with my bikes. I need to have the bags. I got to bring my lunchbox. I got to bring, you know, other things to work. And then also the convenience while you're touring, you got to have more space. The locking is nice, but you got to have wind protection. This is huge. To me, this is a bigger deal than the Batwing fairing. This is helpful, but you got to have this and keep it off your face a little bit better. And so to make this a better tour, I had to put money into it. I had to buy this, I had to buy that. I need to still get more, a more better windshield than that. And the pegs that the bike came with are actually really horrible too. So the pegs on the Scout are much better. They're nothing fancy, they're just a peg, but they're not horrible, and your feet will stay on them. So I got to give the point to Indian. So better for convenience and touring, point to Indian. Okay, so now we're gonna hop on each bike and I'm gonna try to explain how they feel when they're riding, and then we're gonna score it. All right, so we're just getting on our test track here that I use for all of our review videos and comparisons. It's just kind of a nice, twisty, scenic lake drive. And yeah, so it's a great place to test bikes out and to do comparisons and just talk about how everything feels, which is the section of this video that we're on right now. So we're just going to talk a little bit about what each of these bikes feels like to ride. So starting with the Indian Scout, of course it's got forward controls. Both bikes have that, but these are a little more forward. And the handlebars are a little bit wider. It is definitely set up a little bit better when in terms of touring than the Honda. The windshield being an actual windshield for one really helps, and keeps the wind off me, which also helps out with my audio when I'm doing stuff like this in higher wind environments and higher speeds. So the Indian Super Scout, it feels a little bit heavier than the Rebel to ride, which is kind of interesting because this bike is heavier than the Rebel, but it's not that much heavier than the Rebel, but it does feel heavier to ride than the Rebel, but not in like a bad way. Doesn't make it harder or anything like that. It's just you feel the weight a little bit more. In a way, it almost makes you feel a little bit more like safe because it does have a little bit more of a planted feeling because of the extra feeling of the weight. I hope that makes sense. This bike does turn really well. Like that was actually a pretty decent turn. The suspension feels pretty good, about the same. The bike is really easy to maneuver. You do have to put a little bit more input to it, probably partially because of the weight, and also it has a really fat tire on the front. I'm not sure the size difference between the two, but this one does seem to be a little bit of a fatter tire on the front, so you do have to kind of put inputs on the handlebars when you want it to do something, but when it does it, when it decides to go, it goes, and it feels very planted while it's doing it. So all of that is very positive. Just gonna pass this guy real quick. This bike is really smooth. The engine is very smooth. Part of that's the belt drive too. It's the belt final drive. I definitely like it more than chain. This is my first bike with a belt. See, there it is right there. Like that felt just really nice and planted. That pine cone I hit didn't feel great, but we're all right. Yeah, like I was saying, the engine feels very nice and smooth. The gears are like really long. The gear, like I'm in second gear at 40 miles an hour, and I get into it about 25, 30, depending upon what I'm doing. So most of this drive, I'll just stick in second. It's kind of funny. Whereas the Rebel, you'll see it kind of changes gears a little bit more. The gears are a little shorter. So the gears are really long on this. I kind of like it. This bike is quick, and of course we're not going to knock the Rebel because it's not quite as powerful as this bike, because that's one of the differences between the two, is that this one, even though it's roughly at 150 cc's difference in terms of what they're claiming, this bike on standard mode feels like the Rebel in sport mode. So that's one key difference that you should be aware of. This bike is a lot more powerful. It does feel a lot more like rumbly. That's one of those turns that gets me almost every time. Not that time, but yeah, it definitely is like a little bit more rumbly. That's the difference with the V-twin and the parallel twin. When you're at stops and stuff, the Rebel isn't as shaky as this bike. Not that this is like really shaky. Like I rode that Chief recently, and the Indian Chief was much more shaky. That's an air-cooled V-twin, so a little bit different. But yeah, very the riding stance, as we discussed before, very nice and ergonomic, especially for me being a 6-foot individual with a 34-inch inseam. I really like the wider handlebars. I can ride this for longer periods of time without getting tired or feeling discomfort. And the way that the handlebars are swept back more, I'm a lot more, my back's a lot straighter. I'm a lot more upright. And I really like the more extreme, oops, see, that one got me a bit. I really like the more extreme forward controls versus what the Rebel has. It does make it a lot more comfortable for me to ride, and then it's just a lot easier for your legs to kind of hug that tank a little bit more. Yeah, it's a nice bike. This is a very nice bike. It's quick. You feel planted. You feel good. You feel secure. It's got lots of power. I haven't even done the first oil change in it yet, so I haven't messed around with it in sport mode too much, but that is something that I will be doing. And I just really enjoy riding this machine. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to head back to our filming area, and I'm going to hop on the Rebel. We're going to do the same track and talk about what that bike is like to ride, and kind of compare it to this one. So let's head back now. Well, back on the Rebel again. It's been a minute since I've been on here because I've been on the Indian, spending time on that, getting used to it. And Cassie's been riding this bike more and just loving it. And we've been having a lot of fun being able to ride together. One thing though, I just want to get out of the way is, can we take a second and just listen to the exhaust note from the Kaufmans? Just gosh, that thing sounds so good. I love that Kaufman's exhaust. Definitely hit them up if you're looking for a new exhaust for this bike. It's great. Sounds awesome. Makes it more fun to ride because you just want to hear it. You just want to get on it. So, what is it like to ride on the Honda Rebel 1100T compared to the Indian Super Scout? Well, it's been a little bit since I've ridden it, as I just mentioned, and now that I'm getting more used to the Indian, everything that I've said has been true in terms of how the ergonomics are better for me on the Indian as a 6-foot tall individual. So I definitely am more far forward on here because the bars are more straight. They're not swept back a little bit like the Indian bars are. And of course you can get new bars for pretty much any motorcycle, but that's not, this comparison is about things that are stock. That's why I never mentioned exhaust much or anything like that. So this is about stock configurations. So this, I am a little bit farther forward. I wouldn't say it's like uncomfortable. It's just that the Indian is more comfortable for me, as I mentioned before. I have gotten more accustomed to the more forward position of the Indian, which was weird for me because it's kind of out like here, and it was really weird for me at first. but I kind of prefer it now. This isn't bad. It felt really weird at first when I first got on this bike to ride it again after a month or so, but now I'm kind of getting more settled down into it. It's just a little bit of a different stance, but I really like these mini footboards that I put on this bike. So if you haven't watched the video about that I released recently about the best accessories for your Honda Rebel 1100, definitely check it out. There's a link to it in the video description. Definitely worth your time to check that out. And there's the Kaufmans. Woohoo! Yeah, this bike just feels more agile than the Indian, and maybe I just need more time on it, but I do just feel a little bit more agile with this. And it's, like I said, it's a little bit lighter, but it's not like significantly lighter, but I feel a lot more like confident going in those turns faster. Of course, I do have a lot more miles on this bike. We got about 2,500 miles on this bike, most of which are me, versus 500 on the other. So part of that's just being familiar with the machine and trusting its capabilities. Cassie is 5'8", and she fits this bike, I think, perfectly. I think this bike fits her like a glove. And so yeah, if you're a little bit shorter than me, this is, I think, going to fit you better than the Indian Scout. I think the Indian Scout would be fine, but I just think Cassie, not only does it fit her well, but like she looks good on it. Like I said, this bike fits me okay, but now that I've experienced the Indian, it definitely does fit me better. So, all right, I'll stop talking about this. I'll stop talking about that. We'll see what's going on with this truck here. This is like one of those kind of more blind turns. Oh, he's gonna let me go. Thank you. Yeah, going around on twisties on this bike is awesome. I do have the DCT version of this bike, if you haven't noticed already, or haven't known already if you're new to the channel. I got the DCT version because I thought the technology was cool, and I definitely stand by that. I do not regret buying the DCT version of this bike, nor will I probably ever. It's a lot of fun. In terms of like the touring, I probably should have added this to the touring section of this, but it was close for me, because even though the Indian came like more prepared for the touring task right out the gate, the DCT is a lot of fun when you're just riding on a highway, or you're just touring or going down twisties like this. You without having to kind of use that part of your brain where you're manipulating the clutch and thinking about what gear you're in, you know, things of that nature, you can just enjoy the ride more. So here, I'm worrying less about when I'm going to shift my gears. Did I do that gear change right? Am I pulling the clutch enough? And I'm just fully in the ride. And in the sound, and that's really nice. I've been recommending the DCT for over a year now. It's just a different kind of thing, and it's just fun to just enjoy the ride just for the sake of the ride. And I feel like I notice more things around me. The lake looks great. It's probably still really cold. I wouldn't get in that yet. So it's just a nice ride. Like I said before, this bike feels a little more sporty to me, whereas the Indian feels more refined. And there's a lot to be said for that. So let's go ahead and go back to our filming spot here and kind of tie this all up together and see which bike takes home the win. So I'll see you there. Okay, so we're parked and we're off the bikes now. So with the Rebel, you just get a little bit, it just feels a little bit more sporty. It feels lighter on the road, flickable, really fun to ride. The Scout, on the other hand, it feels a little bit heavier, like I mentioned while we were riding, but it does feel a little bit more like confidence inspiring. This feels more refined. That feels sportier. This feels more refined. Honestly, I can't choose between the two in terms of which one is better to ride. They're both great in their own way, so I'm giving them both a point. Okay, so now it's time to total up all the points and see which of these motorcycles will take home the win. All right, so looking back at our point tracker here, you can see that the Scout got 6 points to the Rebel's 3 points. Now that's a pretty defining victory. However, where these are in the same class, you do have to keep in mind that this is a much less expensive motorcycle to buy. Well, like I said, this was $12,500 for me out the door. That one was almost $20,000 to buy. So where they are comparable, they're also not. So who are these motorcycles for? If price is a major thing for you and you're not sure that you can pay the more premium price, this is your bike right here. This is a fantastic motorcycle, and I have not and I will not feel bad about buying that. And I still ride it, and my wife rides it, and it's awesome. However, if money isn't necessarily as much of a factor for you, definitely check out the Indian Super Scout. And you're looking for that touring model too, so you're looking at these bikes specifically. Take a look and ride the Super Scout. This is a great bike. This really gives the Rebel a run for its money. We talked about it all there. So there you have it. The Indian takes home the win. Let me know in the comments if you're surprised by this verdict, and then also go ahead and tell me if you want me to do more comparisons like this. I had a lot of fun making this video. The rain is starting to come down, so it's time to end this video. Thank you so much to all of our channel members to help make this video possible. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more Inland Northwest adventures, and of course, Honda Rebel 1100 and Indian Super Scout content. Just like this video right here, where I talk about the absolute best accessories that you need to get for your Honda Rebel 1100 to make it as best as possible. I'll see you there.